What is up, everybody? Welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I am Cass Hargis. That is Lance Lacoste and Jason Dewey. We appreciate you jumping on with us here tonight as we preview what I think maybe we have a consensus. Maybe we don't, but the best week of Louisiana high school football. No school, Thanksgiving, food, family, and on Friday night, teams get to battle out to go to semifinals.
Family, football, food. Best week of the year.
Say you go to Thanksgiving dinner and make sure you don't eat too much, right? They get football as dessert the next day. Yeah. So some real great.
Right. No, it's the greatest thing in the world.
No. I'll work out so I can eat as much as I want. Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. That is the truth, and it is special to practice and play on this week's, and we've got 32 teams get the opportunity to do that this year in Louisiana, and we'll jump in. We'll go right into it because in about 20 minutes, we've got one of our favorites, program favorite, Coach Salt from Franklinton will jump on with us. So he'll be with us to talk about his Franklinton Demons going up to North DeSoto and that Division II non-select bracket. But let's start in Division I non-select. Up at the top of the bracket, we've got the 1 seed Ruston Bearcats hosting the 8 seed Southside Sharks. The defending Division I non-select state champ Central Wildcats will host the 13 seed Zachary Broncos. This Ruston Southside game is a rematch from last year from the quarterfinals as well, in which Ruston beat Southside. Central and Zachary, obviously these two teams very familiar with each other. Quietly, it almost feels like this Central team is just kind of there. Like you look up and like, oh, there's the defending state champs. And then up top, you have Ruston, which has been, one of the mainstay traditional Louisiana programs in the state for not just the last few years, but for a very long time. But that program has hit another gear. They lost in the Division I non-select state championship last year to Central. So we'll start with Ruston and Southside and Central and Zachary. Y'all take it wherever y'all want to go from there, but those two teams are fighting for the right to go to the semifinal.
Yeah, so up top, I like Ruston's defense here. I think that's what is always going to be so crucial, especially at this point in the season. Southside, they gave up a lot of points last week to Quincy Adams. I know we're big Quincy Adams and Terrebonne fans throughout the season, but giving up 42 points, a little higher than what I would like to see out of Southside there. And so, I think for that reason, I'm leaning Ruston here. I just think they're a more complete football team. The bottom matchup, I mean, you said it. These teams, it's scary how well they know each other. The Central team, they feel like they're up and down, but here they are. They're the 5 seed. They're in the third round of the playoffs, is doing their thing. Feels like the defense is playing a little better from week to week. They had 2 touchdown win last week against another opponent that they know really well. So I don't know. It's been an odd season, I feel like, for Central, from just kind of the way it played out in the regular season, where we were kind of down on them, but they're still really good. They won a lot of games. To look who they played so far. They played Dutchtown, East Ascension, then they play Zachary. It's like they haven't left Baton Rouge.
Right.
Yeah.
No, this is a rematch. These two teams played in week 9. Central won 35-33.
Yep.
Yeah, and it came down to a missed 2-point conversion by Zachary.
Right.
They went with the Philly special. So it seems like that's everybody's kind of go-to. So if it comes down to that, I doubt you'll see that same 2-point play due to the lack of success on it. But when you look at these two matchups, the 1 versus 8, Ruston and Southside, again, as Cass mentioned, it's a rematch of a quarterfinal game. Parker Deese at quarterback has really done a great job operating that offense. Southside offense has been super explosive. The two teams that they've lost to were Acadiana by 3 points in a tight matchup, and the other team is still playing football right now in a quarterfinal game, and that's Notre Dame. So, again, they've had a lot of expectations coming into this year. Colin Francois has been a big playmaker for that offense as well as a receiver and as a back. Shamar Broussard really has great instincts at linebacker, but they're going to take on a Ruston team that, despite losing Dalen Powell at running back, can still be very explosive. Sam Howell has some big targets. Ahmad Hudson, the big 6'8" tight end, who's been just phenomenal. Malcolm Keyshawn, and I think Josiah Morgan. All those guys can make plays. I think it's going to come down to Ken Russ with having one of their biggest weapons out offensively. can Ruston continue to find that continuity? We know they did in the first round, but again, moving forward, not many teams that you're going to play that run that type of offense that Southside does. So that'll be an interesting matchup. And then, as you guys said, the 13 versus 5 matchup in Zachary and Central, two teams that had that familiarity with each other. It's at Central. That's a really difficult place and environment to play. Zachary, not an uncommon season with 3 losses during the regular season, including that kind of head scratcher on paper, at least against Liberty. But look, they got some guys on the defensive side of the football that can make plays. John Vermal, Isaiah Stokes, Dylan Shellmeyer, all big playmakers for this defense. And they're going to have to find a way to slow down this offense that's been rolling for Central. And Max Gassiot, who went for, I think it was like 450 last week at quarterback. He's really done a phenomenal job. Marcus Scott's been one of his big receivers, along with Keithon Womack. And defensively, as we talked about, like Central has a really strong defensive unit. They got Scott Smith, who's committed to Houston, and of course, Jamichael Garrett, Ole Miss commit, and that's not including Lane Billings, who's been kind of all over the field. So 2 really interesting matchups. But I do think if you are these teams, as in Central and Ruston, like Ruston's kind of got to be like looking out like, man, if we can get past Southside, which we did last year, we'd love to get that rematch that we had in the Dome.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think that plays a part into all of these games. With Ruston and Southside, again, they played last year in the quarterfinals. Ruston won 49-7. Southside had a similar game with Acadiana this year in which they were facing a team that kind of got the better of them the year before in Acadiana, and you kind of measure yourself against them, and they played them much tougher this year. Let's see how big of a stride that Coach Jess Curtis and this Sharks team and program has taken. If they get another chance here, obviously you have to go to Ruston. They're going to have their hands full, but this can be a very physical football game, very downhill running attack for both teams, even with Powell missing for Ruston. That's what they do. They also have the X factor in the big tight end, Ahmad Hudson. So this is an interesting matchup. Let's see how far Southside has come from last year. And then the Central Zachary game, we saw it 3 weeks ago, and I expect this game to be very similar to that game as well. Close, late, come down to a play or two, and let's see if the defending state champs can take another step to defending their title. Down on the bottom half of the bracket, this one doesn't look like what maybe we thought it would look like. Ouachita Parish beats Destrehan, the 3 seed, last week. They get a matchup with Parkway. Parkway beats Hahnville in overtime a week ago, so Parkway's going to host Ouachita Parish. And then down at the bottom, this Barb Buccaneers team led by Jordan Griffin and that explosive offense goes to West Monroe and wins, and they set up a matchup with Neville. This is the second year in a row, and this is just happenstance. This is the second year in a row that in Division I non-select, a team seeded 20 or lower has made it to the quarterfinals, and Neville has played them both times. Last year it was Chalmette. Chalmette made the trip to Monroe. I think it's a 24 seed. This year it's a 26 seed. Barb Buccaneers making their trip up to Monroe. This is their 3rd trip to the northern part of the state in a row. And if you look at the rest of that bracket, if Barb were to win, they're going to make that trip again next week. But I think these matchups are very intriguing because you have a Ouachita Parish team that we thought was really good, just maybe a product of the schedule, went through that gauntlet and lost 4 straight close games. And then this Barb team that's just come on of late, playing a Neville team that's probably playing, arguably as good as anyone in the state right now.
I think in some ways you could assume that Neville has gotten lucky getting to play teams in the 20s in the 3rd round of the playoffs, but I think this Barb team is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
Watching these guys play, they are big, they're fast, they're long. They just look tall on film in a weird way. And so I think this is a really odd team to try to match up with. Again, very multiple in defense. I was so impressed the way they went from their odd stack to that 5-1 versus West Monroe and Christian Ponte, and just the way they tackled was unbelievable. I think more than anything, I think Barb they got to utilize the running back the way they did last week, if that's possible. Really, the last 2 weeks. Then the quarterback was really good last week, But, man, he is all over the place, throwing the football everywhere. I think it's really crucial that he protects the football and doesn't turn it over in this matchup. Neville, fun. You get to this point, the best part about Thanksgiving week is you start seeing the same programs that just do this and make these runs every year. Neville has been to the quarterfinals 9 out of the last 10 years. So Thanksgiving week is just a normal thing at Neville. It's crazy to think that, and hopefully they don't take that for granted out there, But yeah, and so Neville, obviously, they know what they're doing this week. And then, like you mentioned, Washita, we know Washita is really good, so we didn't even talk about last week as if it was an upset. It was almost like, why wouldn't they beat Destrehan? Because we know how good they are. They got athletes everywhere. I think they're an issue for Parkway, mainly because you can see what Parkway. Last week they scored 31 points, which is oddly low. They scored 31 points in regulation, which is oddly low for this Parkway team. They got to be able to score more points. They've proven throughout the year they got to be able to score more points in order to win big games. And so I think Washita gives them a problem because of the athletes that Washita has on defense.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Washita 8-4, but not a typical 8-4 team. They played in the most one of the top 2 districts in the entire state, taking on Parkway. We know Parkway's in that 1-5A district that seems to be like basketball on grass. They just put up points. And this Parkway offense, man, they got some dudes, right? Caleb Williams at quarterback has been phenomenal. He's got Antonio Gladney out there, Gary Burney, who's that 6'4" target, freshman, A.J. Johnson, who's been making plays. And this offense has really been explosive. They've been in a lot of tight games, so they're familiar to having that pressure turn on them. Their only loss is to an Evangel team that's also currently sitting with an opportunity to play the number 1 team in the state in Carr in Division I Select. Washita Parish, we talked about Montreal Connor over and over, who's kind of been one of their guys offensively at quarterback. He can make plays both with his feet and his arm. There's been a few games this season where he hasn't put up the numbers offensive passing, but their one consistent thing has been MJ Dade at running back. Man, he's just continued to put up numbers, continued to find success behind this big physical offensive line. Speaking of physical and playmakers on the line, Dylan Berryman for this defense, committed to Texas currently. I don't know that Parkway's played a team as other than maybe Evangel. I don't know if they played a team as physical as Washita Parish. So this will be a really fun matchup to watch, as Washita Parish does have to make that trip out there. We know that stadium is going to be rocking. That should be a fun one. But again, Barb has really been the surprise team. I think they really found themselves in the right part of the bracket at the right time. Offensively, super explosive. Jordan Griffin. Again, we've said over and over, LSU baseball commits, one of the best performance 3-week stretches maybe out of anybody in the entire state. He had 12 touchdowns in week 10 in round 1, and I know he had another exceptional week. Quarterback Jalandon Gray, again, I know he has some offers. Has really been one of their playmakers. He can evade the pressure, and he's gonna have to. He's gonna have to evade pressure and keep plays alive with this Neville defense. Lance, you mentioned that Barb was able to mix things up a lot, but this, as you know, right, this Coach Collins defensive Neville, they're not afraid to mix things up, show blitz, send 6. They'll bring guys, and they have the personnel to do it. In particular, guys we mentioned over and over, Juju Burns, who was a UNC commit, and Jaden Reed, who's their big ULL playmaker in the secondary. At offense, though, Neville's offense has continued to grow over the course of the season. Parker Robinson and Zaylon Young have been a great combination at quarterback and wide receiver. It's not to mention that their backs, right? Jamarian Robertson and Jarvis Blackstone, who've been really big playmakers. So the question's going to come in. I know Barb scores 46.8 points a game, but can they find a way to slow down this Neville offense that's just seemed to be rolling since the tail end of the season? Because, again, I think Neville is one of the hottest teams in the state.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, Jason. I think that's the matchup is, can this Barb defense slow down this Neville offense enough to give their own offense time to go score? Because I don't know that Neville is going to completely shut down this Bucks offense. I think Barb's going to score. But can they stop Neville? And this offense led by Parker Robinson, again, they're just going to have it rolling. These 4 matchups again, we'll go back to the top with Russ and Southside Central, Zachary, Washita Parkway, and Barb Neville. I know maybe when you look at the bracket, you always kind of feel like this is going to be the case in the quarterfinals. There's a chance that all 4 of these games are extremely competitive in one-score games, and they're all close late. Like there's that would not shock me at all if these 4 games are really good and they come down to the last play as we've seen so many times before. So that would be a fun one in Division I non-select. In Division I select, as we move over to the select side, we've got the 1 seed Edna Carr Cougars. They are hosting the Evangel Christian Eagles. Ash will travel to Catholic of Baton Rouge in the other game at the top of that bracket. This Carr Evangel game has to see Pop Houston and his offense go down and play this Carr defense is going to be special. That's going to be special. Evangel, when they played LCA in week 10, we looked at that game and said, okay, for Evangel to win, this is going to be a high-scoring game, and it was the complete opposite. They lost 22-21. If Evangel can figure out a way to muddy up this game similar to how it was in LCA, I think that's their best chance to win. I don't know if their best chance is to go and get in a shootout with Carr on the West Bank. I think if Evangel's going to win this game, they're going to have to play some really good defense. Obviously, Peyton Houston's going to have to take care of the football. I think they have to avoid turnovers at all costs. But if they can make this a 28-24 game or 31-20 game, I think that's the way they win this ball game. And then down at the bottom with Ash and Catholic, Ash may be one of the better seasons statewide, coming off of that Division I select loss to Carr last year in state championship. Catholic has done nothing but blow people out since week 7. They lose to West Monroe, they lose to Madison Ridgeland out of Mississippi. You almost kind of forget about them, and they get into district, and they have started to demolish everybody. So this is a fascinating game as well.
Of course, we love Carr here. I think anyone would agree that Carr's the most talented football team in Louisiana by a long shot. But you got to give Evangel their love and respect as well. There's not a whole lot of teams that have more state championships than Carr. Evangel has literally twice as many state championships as Carr to a T. And so I was looking at the records. Evangel is 25-5 all time in the quarterfinals. Carr is 17-4 all time in the quarterfinals. That is insane. That good of a record in Thanksgiving week. Like, you're playing a great football team that week, and these guys, they know how to win. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, I like to see, you talked about Evangel, the way they matched up against LCA. That's the closest thing that you would think they've seen to Carr as far as from the quarterback position, especially. So I think there's reason to believe that Evangel can hold down Carr's offense, and keep this thing close. I think the key is can they find a way to block Richard Anderson and these D ends to give Pop Houston time to throw, on the perimeter. The Evangel receivers, they've got to win. They got to win matchups. Carr's going to play a lot of good man defense. Can these receivers win matchups and they can protect and give Pop Houston time to throw the football? But more than anything, there's going to be a lot of talent on the field that night. That's going to be a great. That'll be the one I'm streaming. I have to. So 3 LSU commits on one football field is pretty insane. And then, Catholic and Ash, I mean, that just, for all the reasons you mentioned, that just feels like that. It's a game that can go either way. Coin toss game. I think both of those teams are just extremely well balanced. Good quarterback play, great defenses, good running backs. I mean, it just feels like these teams are almost mirror images of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and Carr's been dominant the entire season, and it feels like it's going to take a Herculean effort from Evangel, despite the amount of talent that they have. Pop Houston's been making plays. We've seen him do pirouettes on his way to the end zone, run 50 yards to run 20 yards, and it looks like the most incredible run. He's not doing it alone. John Casey at receiver, Louisiana Tech commit. He's been a big playmaker along with Charlie Abramson and Damari Drake, man. Running back / linebacker for this team. He's a baller. He goes and makes plays. On defensive side, got a lot of guys. Bennett Spear, who goes and makes plays, and Ashton Dawson, the Arkansas commit defensive lineman. But you're talking about going up against a quarterback in John Johnson who makes all the right reads, makes all the right plays. currently is committed to Washington State, just recently flipped his commitment along with Trey Garrison, who's also going to be going to Washington State. They really like to run the ball behind that big physical offensive line, and why not when you have guys that can make those types of holds? Richard Anderson, probably the best defensive tackle I've ever seen in person. Again, LSU commit. He's going to look to wreak havoc against that offensive line, and the struggle with playing against Carr is there are no visible weaknesses. And when you look at linebacker position on defensive line, whether it's the four members of the four key players in the secondary that are committed to Division I teams already, Colorado, LSU. I mean, like, they've got guys all over the field. So I do think, Cash, you're right. I think that it's going to have to be a defensive game, and you're going to have to find a way to slow down that Carr football team. On the other side, man, Alexandria, Catholic, both teams come in 9-2. I like the way that Alexandria runs their turbo offense. Carson Sellers has been exceptional at quarterback, along with Cason Williams, and they got so many targets that they can throw the ball to. But really, their defense has been what's impressive. Although Catholic might not, quote unquote, excel in any one thing offensively, but they do it all really well. Justin Batiste and Jaden Miles. Miles is a Division I prospect right now, has a ton of D1 offers. They've just continued to find success behind that big physical offensive line. And then defensively, man, you got the number one player, arguably number one player in the secondary in the state, in Blaine Bradford, Ohio State commit, a big playmaker. And again, you also have Harrison Kidder back there who's committed to ULL. So looking to make the life of this Alexandria offense difficult, but game is in Baton Rouge. I think that's going to be a rocking environment, and we'll see how that plays into it.
Yeah, no, home field at this point in the year is huge. Look, what we'll do here is we'll go hit the Division II non-select right now. We'll come back to that bottom of the Division I select bracket because we've got special guests. What's up, Coach?
Hey, guys.
We've got our favorite friend of the program, someone who is definitely not a stranger to play in this week of the season. Franklinton Demons head coach, Coach Nick Salt from Magic. Coach, appreciate you hopping on with us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Coach.
Same to you. But look, let's just get to it. You guys, you're traveling as the 8 seed up to North DeSoto. This is a North DeSoto team. I'm sure we don't have to tell you how good they are. I'm sure you've seen that. We've said this before. I think they have the best win in the state when they beat West Monroe early in the year. So that kind of shows you what you're up against. But your offense with Jacob Crane at quarterback, tell us a little bit about him, this offense, and what we can expect when y'all go up there on Friday night.
Well, I've been telling people in Franklinton, I told my wife we're going to kick off at 7 p.m. We'll probably finish somewhere around midnight.
Wait, we lost Coach.
On that. Things in Lakeview, it's the Lakeview Wi-Fi.
The Lakeview Wi-Fi cuts everybody off.
It's like the
Hold
roads.
on. Yeah, we might need to text him.
Man, I was just about to ask him about the North DeSoto entrance. Hope
Yeah,
they're ready
we've got
for it, you know?
to prepare him for that. There he is.
Oh, there
Hey,
he is.
Coach.
There he is.
The Lakeview Wi-Fi got him.
Sorry about that.
All
Good.
Go.
I don't know
Can
if
you hear
if
us?
you can hear me, guys. I can't
Yeah,
hear
I can hear you.
Yep. Can you hear us, Coach? Can you hear us?
We could hear you.
Let me try back. I'm going to try to come on back to you.
Do it. That's all. Go.
There we go.
There we go. No, that's fine. We can. This is. I think this is going to be a high scoring game, and I think that's going to be Franklinton's path to go win. When you look at this North DeSoto team, they're extremely explosive. They're well balanced on offense. They can kind of do a little bit of everything. But this Franklinton team, they know what it takes to win this week in the season. They did it last year. They went to the went to the Dome. Let's see. We got Coach back. Look at this. Better?
Yeah, you good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
We got you.
That's my brother. My brother was calling me. He's a soccer coach at Lakeshore. He knows how I feel about soccer. Run a good football field. Yeah, but back to what you guys were saying. I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, as long as we can keep Jacob upright, in the middle of the year, we lost him in the Sumner game. Kind of had the same injury people at the Saints fans remember when they had Drew Brees, and he hit a thumb on a helmet and tore his UCL in his thumb. We lost him for a couple of weeks, but he came back, and he's been on fire, and we have some skill. DeMicus McClain and Jaden Burkhalter, Ricardo Burris. We have a tight end, Dalton Freeman, who's been playing well. Our offensive lines come together. So, we feel good about where we are, and we know what we're up against. Obviously, we got, North DeSoto's Films, and, it was a very great win against a rising, kind of throwback West Monroe to what they were, a few years back. So that was a quality win. But, I told our kids this today. You're playing at Thanksgiving. You're not going to play anybody easy. There's no more easy games. All the easy games are over, So, but I think there's something to be said about a team that's made this trek before in a community that's used to kind of playing at this time of the year. I think all of those things are positives for us. The big thing we have to do is handle the day, We're good at handling this week. A lot of people don't realize that the important part of handling Thanksgiving week isn't going to practice. It's what you do after practice. You got a lot of downtime. So I told our kids, don't go deer hunting. Don't get on four-wheelers. Don't go jump in the Bogachita River. Go home and rest. And so Friday, it's just going to be, we got to get up early. We're going to eat breakfast at school at 8. We're going to be on a bus ride. We're going to eat in Alexandria, go to Louisiana College and walk through, get back on a bus, get to North DeSoto a little early, let them walk around. And the last thing I told them was in 2013, I was at East Jefferson, and we went up there and put a whipping on them. And so, it can be done. It's definitely a task that we're up to.
Coach, just kind of watching you guys from a distance, it felt like last year you guys were maybe a year ahead of schedule. I know you brought a lot of talent back from last year, if I recall.
Yeah.
And so, I think, watching you guys coming into the season, it was easy to assume that these guys are just going to be better. It's going to be easier than last year because they brought talent back. I know you guys dropped a few games, though. I mean, there was clearly some adversities that you guys went through that was maybe unexpected, right? And so, just talk about just maybe the perseverance and maybe some of the adversity that popped up throughout the season that, maybe made you guys better today and more prepared.
Yeah, I think the one thing you can't overlook is where we did lose people was on our offensive line. And it's really the hardest group to get to play as one unit. It's hard to coach it. It's hard to play it because it's 5 guys that have to all do the same thing at the same time, but 5 different ways. And so it took us a little time to gel. And then defensively, we're not very big. Our size has been an issue for us. And so I think in the middle of the year, especially against Jules Sumner and Lakeshore, 2 teams that just line up with big, giant linemen and run the ball downhill, we couldn't catch our breath. We just weren't able to get off the field. And then we made a couple of changes. We play in a couple of guys. Some of our bigger guys on the offensive line are now playing some defensive line spot, playing it. And we caught our breath again and got through the second part of our schedule, got into the playoffs, and really had a great game last week against a really good Jennings team. So, I don't think the struggle was anything that we didn't anticipate happening because you have to mold that offensive line. And it's just going to be one of those things every year. You want to play 3, 4, 5 senior offensive linemen because it just makes you a better team. But then when you do that, you have that rebuilding that you have to do again. And that's kind of what caught us. And you could see us getting better as they were getting better. We also, we had a running back last year in Cy Austin had over 300 carries. And when you have one running back get that many carries, you're really breaking in a new kid from scratch. And we've been a little bit of a two-headed monster there with Raiden Rayburn and Ricardo Burris, and they both are two different type of backs. Raiden's more of a inside zone, lower the hat, get you the tough 3 yards, whereas Ricardo's more of the counter stretch guy that can score in very quickly. So as all those things were coming together, we were catching our breath, and we're playing our best football right now on both sides of the ball. And an unsung hero for us is we have a young 9th grade kicker, and he really has he came through last week with 2 really, really nice field goals. And so all those things, we're putting everything together at the right time.
Kind of stole some of our thunder. Kind of stole some of our thunder there, Coach. I was about to ask you about special teams. I know it's usually Lance's topic, but going on the road in a really tough environment. Again, I know your teams have been in this type of situation before, but how much does special teams kind of come into play in this type of football game, and how much have you emphasized special teams going on the road in this type of environment?
Well, we do it a lot. We work on it a lot, and what makes North DeSoto unique is in the punt game, they don't take anybody off the field. So they'll get up and they'll get in an offensive formation and then just back the quarterback, who's a very good player, up a few steps. And it forces you to keep your defense on the field, play safe punt all the time. And then they have an exceptional kicker, He's, in the films we've watched, he's kicked a few balls in the end zone, so that makes you drop your return unit has to drop a little deeper, hold blocks a little bit longer. So for us, the emphasis really has been on our stability up front, maintaining a line of scrimmage in the punt game and not giving them an extra possession via a fake. And then not losing yardage, because when you have a kicker that kicks it that deep, Lance will tell you have to hold your blocks a little longer. And we don't need to get a block in the back or a hold and give them, positive yards, us negative yards in the return game. So we've been very good covering kicks. I think we'll always be good covering kicks because we have a lot of speed in our program, and those guys are accelerating down the field pretty rapidly. But, in this game, it could come down to a kick to win the game. I just think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think it's going to be one of those 21-20 slugfests. This is. I think 42 points honestly wins this game. And the guy, I'm saying 42 points wins it. The guy behind it may have 41.
You've been there before, right? That's happened before.
No doubt.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Very eerily similar to what happened last year with Lakeshore, and Lakeshore was the semifinals last year, wasn't it?
It was the quarterfinals. We played Iowa in the semis.
Iowa, that's right. Well,
but the same thing. I mean, we scored late on Iowa to win it. I think it was 34-26.
Yeah. So I know you touched on the week and handling the day and the travel and all that goes with it. How much more comfortable are you with the guys and the guys with you, being that you just did it last year? Like, how important – last year was the first time, not for you, but for them doing it. Now you've both done it together. They know what to expect. You know what to expect of them. Does that make it easier, the same? How does that do?
I think it makes it easier. It's funny you asked that question because we were talking about it after practice this morning. When you look at the brackets and you guys are going through the brackets, it seems like it's always at this time of year, right? It's always the same guys, the same coaches. I don't know why the good Lord blessed me, but he did, because God knows of all the coaches left in this tournament, I'm the worst, all right? But I'm happy to still be in it. But it always seems like when you get to this point, it's the same teams, the same coaches. And I think it has a whole lot to do with just I guess for lack of a better word, a habit. It becomes a habit. It becomes an expectation, or, like people say now, it's your standard. It's the standard in the program. And so our kids understand that, and now it is our standard, and it's on our wall, and we expect to be there. And, we even plan in our season to make a travel. So this isn't the first time we do it. Now, the way it worked out this year, we didn't have that opportunity because our travel game to Lafayette. We had home this year.
Mm-hmm.
But next year, because we've already kind of doing our next 2-year schedule, we'll play Lutcher away, but Dunham at home. And then you flip it. The following year, we'll play Lutcher in Franklinton and then travel to Dunham. Everything else is district for us or natural rivalry. So I try to schedule a trip in so our kids don't get on that charter bus and have that, look, we're going to leave at 9 a.m. We're not on Friday. We're not going to get back to Franklinton until 5 a.m. Saturday morning, and hopefully we come back with a win. We'll give the kids off Saturday, come in Sunday and start all over again. So I just think it's routine. I think those coaches understand it. Those programs that do it over and over again understand it, and it makes it a little bit easier. Now, the 7 to 10 part Friday night, that's not going to be easy.
Right.
The rest of it's going to be pretty hard, pretty easy, but that's going to be pretty hard.
Hey, Coach, you already touched on it a little bit, but y'all have an incredible football community out there, great following. Sounds like a great alumni base. I know you've even compared it to the great St. Bernard Parish at times.
No doubt.
So tell me, what's the Thanksgiving plan? Like, how I'm sure you're using this as a community building experience as well, right?
Yeah, Lance, we've invited everybody that's ever played at Franklinton High School or gone to Franklinton High School to come out to practice. We're going to go early on Thanksgiving morning, just because, I told them not to do it, but I know as soon as we finish practice, our kids are going to go deer hunting before they
We're in the deer stand, Coach. We're in the deer stand.
No doubt. So we're going to I drove to school this morning. I saw 4 deer walking off our practice field. I mean, it's insane. But, this city boy's not used to that, but I'm loving it. I'm not going to kid you. I love it. But, yeah, we'll get people out there. Franklinton is one of the very, very few schools that have had 2 brothers both play at LSU and both wear the number 18. The Taylor brothers.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong football community. Look, the principal, I told Mark Sanji this. I ran into Mark Sanji in the grocery store. You guys know who Mark is.
Of course.
And I said, listen, Shane Smith saved my career. I said, he is phenomenal to work for. And the reason he's phenomenal to work for is because he's a ball coach. But the hard part about working for him is he's a ball coach. He'll call me in on a Monday morning and say, hey, we could do this and we could do that. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, Coach, we've played 7 home playoff games, 6 of them at Franklinton and 1 of them in the Dome in the last 2 years. So I think what we're doing might be okay. And he'll be like, oh, no, we can do this a little bit better. And his son, Jacob, coaches tight ends at the University of Washington. So it's always a 3-way conversation. And I'm always like, Jacob, I coach high school football. I don't have 6'7", 340-pounders blocking for me up front, so we got to tone it down a little bit. But that, to me, is what makes it such a great job, is you have that kind of commitment to high school athletics, especially high school football.
Well, Coach, 2 years ago, we got to watch a game together, Acadiana taking on Carr. I believe that's the last game that Carr lost, and we called it. But I remember having the conversation with you. The season didn't end really the way you wanted it to at Franklinton. But you told me, you said, Jason, I think we got something special coming next year. And sure enough, your team, again, reaches the state title game. And you mentioned how excited you were, how great an environment it was in the community. What does a win this Friday mean for you in that community moving forward, and again, just being one step closer to taking a trip back to the Superdome?
Well, I just think whenever you have the opportunity to play now, to play for an opportunity to continue your season into the 14th week, it's special. Now, if you can win the quarterfinal game and get to the semifinal, look, we could get lucky now. Cecilia, I always have said, and you guys know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, it's hard to beat the defending champion, right? And so we could get lucky, I guess, if you want to use that term, and have
home game.
You upset Plaquemine, and we're playing in Demon Stadium in the semifinal. So there's a lot of reasons to go up there and win this thing, but obviously to get back to the Dome 2 years in a row, there's some people who never get there, and to get there 2 years in a row is a very, very, very difficult task. But we have an opportunity. I mean, we're still playing this Thanksgiving week, and I told our kids the only thing better than playing the last week of November is playing the second week of December. So we have to go up there realizing we have an opportunity to win it. I'm a big believer in let them talk about the other guy. Everybody's going to tell you how good North DeSoto is. But guys, over the last and I told our team this, over the last 2 years, we've had an opportunity to play in 26 games. You're 21-5 in those 26 games. You were in the dome last year. There's no reason, none whatsoever, that you can't go back up there again and win the game and get your butts back in the dome.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And what you've done, and like you said, with your principal coach, Shane Smith, he did it, what was he there, 10, 15-ish years ago, about somewhere
Right.
early 2000s.
Right.
09. So he did a great job. You reviving that program and that community. It's been so much fun to watch from the outside looking in, with no stake in the game other than the parish. So we are huge fans of you, what you've done with that program. It's I think Lance, you want to talk to Coach about what they're going to see on Friday night, and then we can move on.
Maybe a silly question, Coach, but I'm sure you've already seen this. North DeSoto's entrance is unbelievable. I mean, it looks like the 4th of July. And so, I mean, is there anything that do you talk to your kids all about this? About what the when the lights are all over the place and fireworks are going off? I mean, is there anything you do to prepare those guys, or what?
Lance, to be honest with you, I kind of use what we don't have in our advantage. I told them, listen, you go to a beautiful school. It's a beautiful football facility. They got the brick arch that goes into the stadium. You're going to have a visiting locker room. You're not going to have to go bunk down in the gym. You're going to have not that kids shower after games anymore, but you're going to have your own shower facilities. It's really kind of a college, a small college type of facility, But I told them there's something about representing them pine trees up there on the North Shore that is special. And I said, when we get on that field, I want you to look around and see how wonderful it all is. And you think about what you play like when you play between those pine trees in Franklinton, Louisiana. And that's what you're going to carry on your shoulders. So that's kind of how I've talked to them about it. We showed them video today of the facility. We YouTubed their school and showed them all the images and pictures. And the last thing I told them is not one of those things wins a football game. The 11 guys on offense versus the 11 guys on defense, and the 11 guys covering kicks versus the 11 guys kicking. That's what's going to win the game. Nothing else.
No doubt. I want to go play right now, Coach. Sign me up. I'm in.
I'm ready to go. I need 2 more days of practice. Tomorrow for us is all situation stuff. So we'll go through. We'll go through all of our kicking game. Have a brief indo, and then we'll get into situations. And so Wednesdays are really big, important practice days for us. So, we'll look at film early tomorrow morning and then get out on that field and, just go to work. And like I said, I think when we play Friday night, our kids won't be intimidated. Heck, they were in the Superdome a year ago. I just think it's going to be, can we control the run game? Because they have a really, really good tandem of running backs. Can we control Seven, who's an elite receiver for them? And then for us, it's going to be keep ourselves, on time, in the chains, and don't turn the ball over. And it's the cliche, but it's true. Be good in the kicking game. Don't turn the ball over and tackle. And if you can do those 3 things, then you're going to play in a semifinal.
No doubt about that. Well, Coach, man, we really appreciate you hopping on. It's always a fun time when we get to talk with you and learn a little bit more about your team and your program and how y'all do things. But you know what you're doing. Y'all go up there. Y'all represent the 985 well and go play well. And we'll see you again in a few weeks. But we really appreciate you hopping on, Coach.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thank you guys for having me. Lance, tell your wife I said hello, man.
Will do.
I know she's the boss. She's the boss.
She's the boss, yeah. You only got about 20 minutes. I got to get off.
All right, guys. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, Coach. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
You too. See ya. He's awesome. He's
always
one
great.
of the best. One of the best, no doubt. Well, and he said it I think that's going to be a high-scoring game too, and I think that's going to be Franklinton's path to win is to go score. They might need more than 42. Who knows? But the winner of that game is going to match up, like Coach said, with the winner of the Plaquemine-Cecilia game. Plaquemine, obviously, they've scored 55 points. They've scored 54 points in their first two games in the playoffs this year. Cecilia seems to have everybody exactly where they want them. Cecilia comes in as the defending Division II non-select state champs. They did it last year as an 18 seed. This year is a 13 seed, knocked off Lakeshore. They're back in the quarterfinals to see if they can't make another run at the Dome.
What about those two teams? They've scored almost the exact same amount of points through the first two rounds. 54, 55, 54, 56. So I think for that reason, you got to expect this is going to be a high-scoring game. It does seem like Plaquemine's defense has been better, but man, this Cecilia team is just they did it last year. Why wouldn't they do it again? I mean, when Coach
it's almost
said,
like you can't count them out until someone
maybe
beats
get lucky. Yeah, I get what Coach Salt was saying that he would be lucky because they would get a home. I was thinking to myself, I don't know if it's lucky to get Cecilia. So this.
Hey, luck is based on the perceiver, right? So it would be fortunate, but look, man, they do have a test in North DeSoto. Entire offensive line is full of all district, all state guys, a lot of experience. He mentioned running backs, and they really do. They got two really solid running backs in. Braylon Layton, who stepped in when Kenny Thomas was injured. Kenny Thomas is, I believe he's over 3,000 career yards with the Griffins. It might be more than that, but he's had an exceptional career, headed to Louisiana Tech. The quarterback, Luke Delafield, headed to Northwestern. I mean, look, they've got guys, right? They've got guys all over the field, and I do expect, again, this is going to be a shootout. Like, it's going to be a high-scoring affair. And the other matchup, Plaquemine, I don't know if they lost one football game this year. They're 11-1 and have been really dominant. So I know that they've got junior quarterback, 6'3", 200 pounds. He's already thrown for 2,000 yards on the season. Brennan Miles, he's really been impressive. And they've got playmakers on that team. We know Cecilia's got probably one of the biggest athletes in this classification and bracket, and Braylon Cowley, who stepped in to play quarterback. He can run, he can pass, he can catch, he can do whatever you need him to do. He's a freak of nature athlete. So I think both matchups are really going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. It's Cecilia, man. They just keep rolling along, and it's almost like we've come to expect them to do that at this point. Down on the bottom half of the bracket, we had two lower seeds win last week, two double-digit lower seeds who traveled and went on a road. Belle Chase, they're the 3 seed. They beat Opelousas 7-6. They will host the 11 seeded West Feliciana, who went on the road last week and beat Bruley in overtime, 27-24. And then all the way down at the bottom, the 2 seed Iway Yellow Jackets. This is a team last year, Coach Salt mentioned they lost to Franklinton in the semifinals. That's their only loss in the last 2 years. They were undefeated regular season last year. They're undefeated coming into this game this year. They will host the 10 seeded Letcher Bulldogs, who went on the road last year. This was an overtime game as well, I believe, with Franklin. They won 42-41. Looking at this part of the bracket, I feel like any one of these 4 teams could show up in a Superdome, and we could say, okay, that sounds about right. Letcher, to me, maybe it's because I saw them play 2 weeks ago, feels like maybe they're the most complete, playing the best. I'm saying that. I'm also well aware that Iway hasn't lost yet. So that maybe, we can see what that's all about. But this Letcher team seems to be playing as well as anyone in the state.
Yeah, I think Letcher coming off the win they had last week, I mean, it's a great win, but what an emotional high to have to, come back and now face an even better Iway team. I think this is a really tough one for Letcher. This is a team that's, they've gotten better all throughout the year, as Coach mentioned. This Iway team just feels like a team that's on a mission, older team. They got upset last year in the semifinals, and they feel like a team that is just on a mission and not going to let their season get derailed this year. I think it's be a good matchup. I like Iway there, and then up top, Belle Chase. I think when I thought about that Belle Chase game last week, I feel like their offense might have been the one that really got out of rhythm from that bye week. If there was ever a team that maybe suffered a little bit from the bye week, I'm thinking about their offensive unit. And so, but luckily their defense is great. Their defense carried them to victory last week. But I'm expecting that Belche's offense have a better showing this week. They're gonna need to have a better showing this week, of course, but with West Feliciana. But I think they'll have a better offensive showing this week, and their defense continues to be great.
Yeah, and when you look at these two games, I mean, again, it seems like everybody's had kind of have all big, high-scoring games except for this West Feliciana Belle Chase matchup. This Belle Chase team has really relied on defense and grounding and pounding the football. I don't know how many teams West Feliciana has seen like that. Again, they beat a Bruley team that really explosive offensively, but they like to pass the football. Belle Chase really leans heavily on that run. Amari Ambrose has been a big guy for them, along with Dylan Carter. Carter over 1,000 yards on the season. But also, man, big Savion Bartholomew, Texas State commit, really big physical defensive lineman for that team. And West Feliciana, this is their first time back in the quarterfinals, I want to say, since 2022. So they had to win that last game in overtime. I think that'd be a fascinating one. But luckily, if you are Belle Chase, you get that game at home. So I think that could be a big. I've been to Belle Chase. I used to do play-by-play for them years ago, so I know how raucous that environment can get. So that'll be a fun one. But when you look at the bottom, this game really has me torn. So I think both of you guys make great points. I think your highest high comes your lowest low, and I think when you're talking about, maybe outside of North DeSoto, and I said this coming into the season, pound for pound athlete, I think Franklin Parish had the most athletes on the field at one time. Just unbelievable talent, top to bottom. But again, Iowa guys has won every game on their schedule and has won every game by double digits. Like, they can't be overlooked. But they also have Javion Adams, who's been a freak at running back for them, been making plays the entire season, along with Jeremiah Bushnell, who's a receiver. He also gets some touches carrying the football. Houston commit. But Lutcher, man, that offense with Stark, Jamile and Joseph, Johnny Jones, Booth at receiver as well. And, of course, the freshman Charles kind of bringing it all together. Not to mention that defense, man, an experienced defensive unit. They're going to have to work cut out for them to go on the road and win that football game. A 2.5-hour road trip, I think it'll be a fun one, but can Lutcher get up again? Like, can they get all the high fives and the you gotchas and pats on the back and turn it into another win again? That's the big question.
Yeah, and I think in this case, traveling for Lutcher's probably going to be a bigger disadvantage than normal, as opposed. It's not so much the traveling to go play the actual game on someone else's home field. It's just the actual getting on a bus again and going to play again. After going up to Franklin, now you got to come back home. Then you got to go back all the way out to Iowa again. I think that maybe can get them, but nothing would surprise me. This Iowa team has been extremely consistent, like you said, Jason, winning every game by double digits throughout this season. You know that they want to go out and prove that last year was a fluke with that loss to Franklinton, so they're going to be on a mission. This may be one of the better games that we see all weekend long. Moving on to Division II non-select, we've been through. This is the fourth bracket now. It has taken us 4 brackets to get to a bracket with all chalk, and this is the one here with the higher seeds all making it into the quarterfinal round, where you have the 1 seed St. Charles hosting Edie White, the 8 seed. Madison Prep, the 5, will go to U High, the 4 seed. We kind of could see this coming. This is kind of what you could have predicted. The St. Charles Edie White matchup is very fascinating. St. Charles has been extremely impressive all year long, and so has Edie White. I think this game stylistically lends itself to keeping Edie White in the game. I don't know that this is one that they just go out and get run out of the building, because I think the way that they play is going to keep them in the game. If they have a chance to win it late in the fourth quarter, I think that's all they can ask for. And then this bottom half, Madison Prep traveling to U High. This is a rematch of a Week 9 game in which U High won 14-8. There was not an offensive touchdown scored. I think Madison Prep ran back a punt, and it was late in the game. This was like a 0-0 game into late in the ball game. So extremely competitive. I expect the same from these two. But I think both of these games here can be both very competitive down to the last possession.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think I have a pick on either one of these games. This one, both of these feel like they could just go either way. Who's going to play the cleaner football game? St. Charles has been great, of course, all year. So balanced. The quarterback has been so efficient. Skylar Edwards has been fantastic. The defense has been fantastic. But, man, you look at E.D. White, and they're just as impressive. I think that the only reason why E.D. White's an 8 seed is because they played Holy Cross Jesuit and I think they played one other 5A school too, right? And so I mean, I watched this E.D. White team week 1. I know they've grown a lot since then, but I was really impressed by just how well balanced they were. They had a very good defense. They're really good up front as well on the O-line and D-line. And the quarterback was pretty dang good too. So I think they pose this is definitely the toughest challenge. I would say this is the toughest challenge St. Charles has had maybe all year. It's definitely in the last few weeks. And then, like you said, the bottom matchup, I mean, you're talking about athlete on athlete, and this is another one that just go either way. Who's going to create more turnovers, who's going to make a special teams mistake, I think is going to be the difference between Madison Prep and ULab.
Yeah, when you look at
point too, Lance, Jason, E.D. White's first 3 games, week 1, week 2, week 3, Holy Cross Jesuit, Hornbill.
Yeah,
they lost
something like that.
and they haven't lost since.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, E.D. White's schedule at the top end really was tough. St. Charles had a tough schedule too. Their only loss is going on the road to St. James and losing on a last-second play against one of the most dynamic offenses in the state, I would argue. So I do think Grant Barbara, quarterback for E.D. White, you guys have mentioned, feels like an 8th-year senior. He's been their guy. Going into St. Charles is not an easy thing to do. Not the biggest stadium in the world, but really a tough environment. Again, having played there, the fans show up. And this is Thanksgiving weekend, which means you're going to have a lot of people there. People love their comments. One of the things is tradition never graduates. And they pack the stands. And, Skylar Edward has definitely been a guy. I think Evan Dufour, when he gets his chance to make touches and make his plays, he can do it, as well as Walker LeBlanc, who's a receiver, really big in the screen game. His cousin Landry LeBlanc passing the football. But that secondary and linebacking core really has been big between Marix, Monica, Anderson. I mean, this defense feels like an extension of the offense. So, and honestly, guys, this is a throwback. Like, this was a rivalry in the early 2000s. They were in the same district. So I do think that at least the alumni kind of come into this game kind of having that as well on their mind and knowing that this is a game that you want to win. Not just because it's a quarterfinal game, because it has a little bit of extra hot sauce in it. But, looking at Madison Prep, U-High, I think both teams are really super athletic. Lamar Brown, a lot of people would say is the best athlete in the state, and I wouldn't disagree with that either. Really big player for that team. But, man, I do think Dylan Reed, quarterback for Madison Prep, he's kind of stepped in that role. And, again, he didn't start the entire year. Landon Johnson, all-world playmaker for Madison Prep, guy returned the punt for a touchdown, has really been big for them. So we'll see how this one goes. I think you're going to have to do something different if you're Madison Prep, and maybe that's getting the ball to Johnson on the perimeter and letting Reed play quarterback a little bit more.
Yeah, that E.D. White St. Charles game, Jason, that is going to be a fun one to watch. I think there's going to be good crowds at all the games, but those people in Laplace, especially after last year, like they've kind of been itching to get back to what they're accustomed to, and they're accustomed to Thanksgiving football. So they're going to show up, and that's going to be a fun atmosphere. Down at the bottom half of the bracket, got the 3-seed Lake Charles College Prep hosting the 6-seed Vanderbilt Catholic Terriers, and the 7-seeded Shaw Eagles, the defending Division II Select state champs. They will travel all the way up to Shreveport to take on the 2-seed Loyola Prep. We'll stay down at this game to start. I think Shaw's offense is going to have to show up. This Loyola Prep team, Shaw's defense is good, and Shaw's defense is going to go play well, but Loyola Prep's still going to score. With Bryce Restovich at quarterback, like that team's going to score points. Shaw's offense is going to have to show up in a big way to find a way to get through and win that game for the Eagles. That offense kind of came to life a little bit last week. After the bye week, they put up 49 over Haynes Academy. They're going to have to score some points to give themselves a shot up in Shreveport.
I mean, that's exactly the direction I was going. Hopefully, Shaw's offense found a little something, last week versus Haynes Academy. But before that, these guys really struggled week 9, week 10. We know Coach Adam Giglio, defense coordinator over there at Shaw, is going to have a great plan for Loyola Prep. We've seen them already shut down LCA early in the season, so that gives you reason to believe that this defense can do something this week. But with that said, they're not going to shut out this Loyola Prep team. They've got to find some points. Alan Shaw, this offense, they've got to get going. They got to be able to run the football, run some clock off, get in the end zone when they have the opportunities to get in the end zone. And it's hard to put this on the defense, but the defense, that ball is going to be up in the air. They got to find some turnovers. They got to find a tipped interception, things like that. They got to be very opportunistic back there to really give themselves a chance in this game, I think. And then the top one, man, it's hard to make out. These two, Lake Charles College Prep, they've come in with so much, flash, and you hear so much about this team and the talent they have. I feel like this is going to be – we already seen what happened with them against LCA. This obviously isn't as tough of a matchup as LCA, but this feels like one of their toughest matchups. It's not their toughest matchup outside of the LCA matchup where, they kind of laid an egg. So I think this is a huge opportunity for this Lake Charles College Prep, kind of a new school, to really, show the state what they're all about and get to the semis.
Yeah, the Trailblazers. There you go. I had to toss that one in there for you. The Trailblazers of Lake Charles College Prep, man. Aiden Carter really has been a freak in the backfield. I think Vanderbilt Catholic is going to have to find a way to slow down this rushing attack. But also, man, Dylan Vitale, quarterback for the Trailblazers, just as effective. Really big playmaker. This Vanderbilt Catholic team just finds ways to win 10-1 on the year. Their only loss is to E.D. White, who's also sitting in the quarterfinals. Xavier Moses and Logan Himmel in that secondary. And have to come up with some big plays. But Ethan Henney, quarterback for the Terriers, really has been one of the more understated quarterbacks in the state. So, again, look for that one to be a fun one. And I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Shaw, it's really relied heavily on their defense. I think Michael Banks and Rontre Carter for this Shaw defense is going to have to step up, but also staying on the field, running the clock, staying on the field, because Bryce Restovich, Ty Weiswald, Mason Drake at running back, this offense knows how to roll. And when they get rolling, they're really tough to stop. They also get Thomas Golsey back this week, who's a guy in the secondary, along with Alex Mitchell. Both this team they specialize in forcing turnovers. So Shaw has to not only force turnovers, but hang on to the football and try to slow down this passing attack as best you can.
Yep, that's going to be – it's almost like an interesting clash of styles in that matchup. But can Shaw slow down Loyola enough, but then also the Shaw offense is going to have to find something and go score some points. And wouldn't shock me if they did. That's kind of what they do. They're going to have a good plan. Can they go up there and execute it? We will see. All right, moving on to now Division 3 non-select. We have the top-seeded Gina Giants. They will host Mansfield at the top of the bracket, and then the 12-seed Union Parish. They went on the road and defeated Erath in one of the, maybe at least by the box score, weirdest games that you're going to see.
Bizarre.
Yeah, very bizarre. They are going to travel to Kinder, the 4-seed. This Gina team, extremely explosive offense. They've put up points all year long. Going back to week 6, they've scored at least 60 points 4 times. And they have not scored less than 48. And that was last week. That was their lowest output. So that offense is going to be explosive. Can they do it again to get to the semifinals? And in this Union Parish Kinder game is very interesting. Union Parish, one of the more talented teams. I think they were definitely underseeded as a 12 seed. Kinder is a tough place to play. That is a place that loves their football. They love to get behind their school. It's going to be a really nice environment out there. That is a very fun matchup to see as well when Union travels to Kinder.
I mean, Union Parish is a program that recently has learned how to win, it feels like, right? They're one of those programs that's just always there at this time of the year. And so they did it last week. It was ugly, but they found a way to win. Kinder's an even tougher matchup, but no reason to underestimate this Union Parish team and just figuring out ways to win, right? No matter how ugly it is. Gina, a couple great running backs. They've been really explosive all season long. Mansfield is their first quarterfinal appearance since 1993. So good to see these guys in the third round, but they got a heck of a matchup ahead of them with Gina.
I mean, Mansfield, the Wolverines got to find a way to slow down this rushing attack. And they gave up 60 points last week to a Marksville offense that has been explosive. But Terrell Puigas has really been a big part of that Wolverine offense, as well as J.J. Howard at quarterback. And Virginia, Cedric Wilson's been one of the more, along with Daniel Hatcher, both guys have been prolific runners for this team. They do like to run that veer. A little bit more of a preset call, but again, it's a unique offense. Sometimes that could be enough. Mansfield does not pass the football either, guys. They threw one pass last week, so expect a lot of running in this football game, and yet somehow still a very high-scoring game. Love to see it. Love to see it.
What a fact. I did not know that. What a fact. They threw one pass and scored 62 points?
Yeah.
That's great. Man, that's awesome.
Wait, I hope I'm not mistaken. Maybe I too late to fact check now. We're going with it.
It's true. It's true.
Good. But look, the other side. Look, Kinder is maybe one of the more quiet 11-0 football teams, guys. Against this 7-5 Union Parish team, you can't look at records, right? Union Parish, big physical. Ari Slocum, big boy up front, 6'4", 315. Plays some tight end. Committed to Arkansas. Plays some defensive tackle. Going up against this Kinder offense and Isaiah Thomas, who just set the record for most total offensive yards by a player on offense. Again, 3,000 yards, 40 touchdowns. It's really been impressive. This Yellow Jacket offense is going to have their work cut out for them because Erath had a very prolific offense too. And somehow this physical Farmerville – sorry, I had a throwback there. This physical fighting Farmer defense is going to be tough to score against.
Yeah, and you know that this Union Parish, again, I don't want to spend too much time on last week, but it almost felt like Union would be the favorite in that game at Erath. With that said, Erath was extremely explosive all year long. Union holds them to 9 points. In the way that they won the game, these guys have to be extremely confident heading to a tough place, and it's tough because of the team you have to play in Kinder. That is going to be a fun one. This Gina Mansfield game, I tell you, each team may run for 400 yards. I mean, it's going that. Yeah, Coach Salt talked about his game not ending till midnight because it's going to be so high scoring. This one still may end at 9:30, but the score still might be in the 60s. It's just going to be crazy. Down at the bottom of the bracket, how about the 3 seed St. James hosting the 6 seed Oak Grove? That game right there is going to be so much fun. Oak Grove traveling down to St. James. And then at the bottom of the bracket, you have the 7 seed Laurelville traveling up to the 2-seeded Sterlington. So, but this St. James Oak Grove, pound for pound in any bracket, may be one of the better games on the slate Friday night.
Laurelville, Jason's been real high on Laurelville the entire season. This is their opportunity, really, right? I mean, these are the other 3 teams in this little bracket right here are they're here every year. This is what they do. They get to at least Thanksgiving and usually beyond. The Sterlington team, they've been to the quarters 18 times in the last 30 years. So it's just another program that's been there a bunch. And I know St. James and Oak Grove have similar numbers, right? And so it's going to be really interested to see Laurelville as the underdog. Can they go upset the Sterlington team? It'd be fun, but we'll see there. And then St. James, Oak Grove, I think St. James, we've seen them be really explosive. Can they be that explosive against Oak Grove? Oak Grove, I mean, they're coming off of 2 shutouts, right? And so, what kind of fight can what kind of offense can St. James find, I guess, against this Oak Grove defense?
And look, I want to preface this by saying, a big Wildcat guy. I love going there, love the community there, friends out there. But this is a tough game against Oak Grove, who's a very big physical team. And St. Charles nearly beat them with a big physical football team. They lost to Shaw earlier in the year, who, again, plays physical, run the football style offense. That's what Oak Grove is. So I think this is a very tough matchup for the St. James football team. However, Oak Grove has a big offensive line, and they like to run the football and play solid defense. However, being at home in that environment, I think, is a massive win for St. James. I think that could be what the game comes down to, but expect some fireworks, not only the pregame fireworks, but the big train horn after every touchdown. But look, man, Jacaias Villanova probably going to be the best player on the field. in that football game. Jawan Jackson, big quarterback for them as well. They got playmakers all over. Kanye Zenon as well. Like, St. James has talent, but man, it's talent versus talented athletes versus a physical defense. It's going to be a fun one to watch. And yes, I've been high on Laurelville, but man, Sterlington, guys, 2 losses, 9-2. Their only losses are to 2 teams that are currently still in the bracket and in Division 1, right?
Both 5A teams.
Yeah, Neville and Union Parish. So again, it nearly beat both teams, I might add. This is a very good Sterlington team. Yep. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Very good football team. Although Blake Delcom for this Laurelville team, they have a physical style run game. They like to run the football, but it's gonna be tough against Trey Birch, who's been an all-world defensive player for this team, and Devin Downs at wide receiver for this team, LSU baseball commit, big playmaker, along with Cass. We got to watch this young man play with D'Arvin Woods, Xavier Stromile, who transferred over from there. So you got playmakers on both sides of the football.
No, that is this. What Sterlington has been extremely impressive, albeit you almost expect it from a Sterlington team. But they have blown out everyone on their schedule, not named Neville and Washita, and both of those games were one-possession games. The Neville game finished in a 7-point game. Washita was a one-possession game late. So they are definitely battle-tested, but this is a fun part of the Division II non-select bracket. In the Division III select bracket, we've got the 1 seed Lafayette Christian Knights hosting the 9 seed Catholic High New Iberia, and then that game will play. Those 2 teams will play the winner of the 5 seeded Dunham and the 4 seed Isidore Newman. This bracket, we said it when the brackets came out. Extremely deep, extremely competitive, very, very good bracket, and all of that is to say, outside of LCA. LCA just feels like they are just, I don't want to say head and shoulders above everyone else in this bracket, because that would be a disservice to those teams, but it feels like there's a gap. And this LCA team has been rolling. Catholic New Iberia, the defending state champs, I think they won it last year as a 7 seed. They have their hands full, obviously traveling to LCA. This Dunham-Newman game looks like it's going to be really fun. Dunham scores 62 points behind Elijah Haven last week over Northlake. Newman has seemed to have figured some stuff out. It took him, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then they started to get rolling with Jake Randall and that offense. That's going to be a fun game down in New Orleans. And then you have the LCA hosting Catholic New Iberia over in Lafayette.
LCA is incredible. Starts with that quarterback. The defense has been really good when they need to be as well. The only thing I'll say is I haven't seen Catholic New Iberia this year. I watched them last year in the playoffs. I was extremely impressed, mostly with their defense. They had some really good linebackers. They were really physical. They're second level, like Rover, strong safety guys were just ball players. They created turnovers, and they gave Newman a ton of trouble when I watched them in the playoffs. If I was going to compare them to a defense, it would be Shaw. And that's where I'll leave that. The only team that, really gave this LCA team a lot of trouble. So I think I'm not picking against LCA. They're great. I agree with you. But if there's a team, if there's a reason to believe in this Catholic New Iberia team, I've seen their defense, how multiple they can be, and the way they can create turnovers. And we saw it earlier this year in a different matchup for LCA. Dunham-Newman, I think it comes down to, can Newman control this game with Jake Randall? They have an unbelievable run game. He's able to throw the football now, so he's keeping defenses very honest. That is going to be the key. Can they shorten this game up a little bit? Can they continue to just move the chains and be very efficient offensively? This one is – it's hard to put a game on one player, but I think this game is on one player. It's on Jake Randall, his ability to keep them honest defensively, throwing the football, and then running the football behind their offensive line. They've got to keep Elijah Haven off the field. It's no secret, right? And so the more possessions Elijah Haven has, the worse this one probably gets for Newman. But I think Newman does have somewhat of the equalizer with this run game and Jake Randall.
Yeah, briefly looking at Catholic U. Iberia going on the road. Owen Morris is going to have to be a big playmaker for them. Running back who's done a great job for them. Kyron Eugene in the secondary along with Leighton Mitchell and Xavier Leday. Really going to have to find a way to slow down this passing attack for LCA. Will that be enough is the question, because we know both sides of the football. I think LCA has well over 150 tackles for loss in the year. So they've got guys on both sides of the football. Luke Green, UL commit, and of course Caleb Simon at linebacker along with Jamison Marzell. Some big physical defense for LCA. So, can they move the football enough to hang on, and can their defense force enough turnover? That's going to be the big question. But LCA, again, it's going to be it's a tough environment to play at as well. The other game, Dunham. I mean, it starts. You won't say it starts and finishes with Elijah Haven, but there's so many guys on this offense, right? Jarvis Washington, who's a South Alabama commit, Trevor Harmon, Chris Thomas, Colin Piku. Like, they got guys all over the field. They know how to mix it up, and of course, Coach Weiner knows how to win. And again, two guys who are familiar with each other, and Coach Weiss at Newman playing against each other. This Newman team, again, going to have the benefit of home field advantage. They put up a lot of points offensively early in the game, but they're going to have to find a way to stay on the field. I don't know I think big plays could be a detriment in this game if you are Newman. You have to find a way to score against a really good defense, but really you want to hang on to the football and keep that offense off the field if you're Newman.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Down at the bottom, we've got the 3 seed Jules Sumner hosting Calvary Baptist, the 6th seed in the hole up in North Tangipahoa Parish. And then the 2 seed Notre Dame Pios hosting Lafayette Renaissance Charter Academy. Both of these games, as you would expect, to be very good quarterfinal games. Jules Sumner looking to continue a magical season, but it's really been a magical 2-year run. They're extremely good, facing a Calvary Baptist team that is offensively very explosive. Very explosive. They're going to be able to come down and score points. This one may be a little more high scoring. And in Notre Dame and Lafayette Renaissance, these two teams, district rivals, they played in week 9. Notre Dame won that game 38-19. So can Lafayette Renaissance that's a really good coaching staff. They're very talented. Notre Dame seems to be on a different level than what they were last year. I think Coach Louis Cook and that program, speaking of programs winning in quarterfinals, this is their time, and this is when they take over their bracket. So very, very interesting matchup because they're familiar with each other. So that if Larka can keep the game close late, obviously they're going to have a chance and put a little doubt in Notre Dame's mind. Notre Dame is going to look to be very physical, run it right at them, and kind of get a lead early and kind of put this game away late.
I think the other interesting part here is it's like you have two teams that have been here so many times with Calvary Baptist and Notre Dame. Jules Sumner, it's only their 4th time ever being in the quarterfinals. Lafayette Renaissance, I believe it's their first time. They're a new school, obviously, right? And so, so I think that's an added dynamic too. You have 2 programs that have done this whole Thanksgiving thing almost every year, and then you got 2 schools that it's their first time really doing this whole Thanksgiving thing. So I think that plays a part in it. I think for Jules Sumner, what a great opportunity for these guys to really put themselves on the map. I think, like you said, they're like quietly one of the best programs in Louisiana over the last 2 years, but nobody is really, I don't think, giving them that credit. And it's because they haven't maybe had a really big victory like the one that they could have this Friday night versus the Calvary Baptist. So that'll be a great matchup. And then, like you said, Notre Dame, Lafayette Renaissance kind of seems like a clash of 2 different styles. Notre Dame's going to line it up, run it right at you. Lafayette's going to probably try to run it around you a little bit and throw it down the field. So I think that'll be an interesting matchup just because it just seems like 2 different styles of football.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Calvary and Jules Sumner, right? We talk about contrasted styles. Calvary does like to pass the football. Hudson Price, really, it's only a sophomore, but it's really been passing the ball exceptionally. I mean, it's nice when you got a guy like Braylon Hoagland down there who's a big-time recruit at wide receiver. But, again, they can air it out. Meanwhile, Jules Sumner really likes to pound the rock, right? Jamon Dyson and Jeremiah Brooks. I know got some guys that play both ways there. could be an interesting dynamic. How does that play in when you're talking about third and fourth quarter? And you're talking about Calvary Baptist having been there and having the experience. I do think there's a great opportunity, as you mentioned, hosting one of the premier teams in the state in Calvary Baptist in the whole. I think Jules Sumner, the Cowboys, they have to feel great about the situation they put themselves in. But again, they have to make sure that they are keeping their offense on the field. And again, you got to come up with some stops. So on the other side, Notre Dame and Lafayette Christian, Coach Louis Cook has been doing this for quite some time. Lafayette Renaissance, again, Coach Landry, I believe, is at Lafayette Renaissance. Again, he's been there before. So maybe while the program is new, he's got this type of experience. He did it when he was at LCA. I think this is going to be an interesting one because it is a rematch scenario. We're seeing a lot of these in these playoffs, and typically the team that has won the game in the regular season has not won. The team that won in the regular season has won in the postseason. However, Notre Dame last year in the postseason beat LCA and lost to them in the postseason. So it brings up an interesting dynamic as well.
Yep, no doubt. Fun matchups there. And then in Division 4, non-select first one seed Haynesville, which they seem like they're the one seed every year in this division. They will host Jonesboro. It's crazy with that program.
It's true. It's funny because it's true.
When you look at their numbers, it is not only, and not only do they get to this point and win, but they do it as like the one seed all the time. They will host Jonesboro Hodge. The 5-4 matchup is Logansport traveling down to Jeanerette.
Jonesboro's Hodge. Every few years they have a special team, and this is that team for those guys this year. It's their first time here in 4 years. But yeah, huge test with with Haynesville. Great defense. They're going to be really tough for Jonesboro Hodge. And at the bottom, those are two teams that we knew all year had very good football teams. Jason talks a lot about Jeanerette. I talk a lot about Logansport just because when I was up in that area in August, that was kind of the talk of the town, was just how much they're putting into their athletic facilities and their locker rooms and their team, and they're getting kids from Texas and all kinds of stuff. And so, I think it's good to see these guys right in the third round where everybody kind of expected them to be, and we'll see who's the better team on Friday.
Yeah, you look, Haynesville has the best, arguably one. He's going to LSU, right? Isaiah Washington. He's getting to play defensive back at the next level. Really dynamic quarterback. Jonesboro Hodge. Going to have some guys that like to go both. They do have some guys that go both ways. When you're in 1A football, it's kind of what happens, right? Dakota Knox for Jonesboro Hodge has been exceptional. He's passed for a ton of yards on the season. Again, he had 6 touchdowns, I believe it was last week. So look, he's an all-district caliber player, along with Landon Boston, who plays linebacker exceptionally. So be interesting, but again, Haynesville is there for a reason every year. Logansport, again, another team, 10-1 coming in. Jeanerette, man, I really have been high on them for a reason. They've tested themselves early, and just another opportunity. Even through injuries, they still consistently find a way to win. So now you get a shot in the quarterfinal round at home. Yeah, they have to like their odds.
Yep. And then down at the bottom of that bracket, this game here, the talent that's going to be on the field when South Plaquemines hosts North Iberville, that's going to be impressive for any game, but especially a Division IV game, or both these schools being in Class 1A. In the other quarterfinal matchup, the Mangum Dragons will host the 7 seed East Feliciana, but this South Platte North Iberville game. Speaking of teams investing and schools investing and communities investing, North Iberville has invested tremendously in their school, their athletic facilities, their program. And it's funny when you do that, how it pays off, right? Like, it's just kind of funny how that works. But this is a very talented South Plaquemines team. I think this is huge that they have this game at home. Hopefully North Iberville goes to South Plaque and not to Plaquemine, north of Baton Rouge like we had earlier. But this is going to be a fun game for sure.
Easy to cheer for North Iberville for all those reasons. Got a lot of momentum for these guys. If there's one thing, though, to really look for here is North Iberville's first time playing Thanksgiving week. we know South Black, this is just part of their schedule,
Yep.
So I think there's a lot to be said for just how does North Iberville handle it this week? How do they travel all the way to South Black? South Black, that they've been a little underwhelming in recent weeks, but this is a team that tends to play really well in November. So I wouldn't count out South Black by any means. At the bottom, I think it's a fun matchup. East Feliciana's defense has been really, really good, really all season long and even into the playoffs. So how does that East Feliciana defense match up with Mangum, who's scored 50 points a game?
Yeah, look, North Iberville, Brayshawn Melanson, two-way player, really dynamic. They're going to have to find a way to slow down this South Black football team. Although, man, 6 points last week, I believe it was. If you have it.
Yep, 6-0.
Yep. So look, South Black's got to find a way to put up some more offense. Although I know North Iberville, they're really dynamic offensively. So really interesting game there. Again, South Black having at home, as you guys mentioned, a big nod to them. East Feliciana tested himself with their schedule, 10-3 on the season. Still played Dunham earlier in the year, and that was a really lopsided football game. However, for the most part, man, East Feliciana has been, despite their schedule, has been in pretty much every game that they played. But Mangum is in probably one of the most brutal 2A districts in the entire state. Still come out 9-2, have the feather in their cap, which is a win over Oak Grove earlier in the year, which is huge. Colby Casey, Willie Randolph, Rayon Bell in that offense going up against an East Feliciana team with Ryan Bug Moore, who's a two-way player for that Tigers football team. I think it'll be an interesting matchup. And again, the Dragons, one of the most dynamic atmospheres and entrances in the entire state. So look forward to that one.
I need to see that.
Yep.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Send us video, Mangum. If anyone from Mangum is listening, we would love to we'd love to check it out because we love a good entrance. We love a good entrance here. The last bracket, the Division 4 select bracket, the 1 seed Westminster Christian will host the 9 seed St. Edmunds Blue Jays, and the 5 seed Ascension Catholic will travel to the 4 seed Catholic Point Capee. Westminster St. Edmund game. St. Edmund's offense has been extremely explosive all year long. Can that offense travel to Westminster and put up enough points to knock off a really good Westminster Christian team? And then down at the bottom, Catholic Point Capee, they played a pretty good schedule. They've handled it well. They have extremely dynamic athletes that can go out and put up some points in bunches. I think it's big, obviously, if you get to this point in the season to host games. The difference between a 5 seed and a 4 seed is huge. So having this game at home is going to be very critical for Catholic Point Capee.
Yeah, Point Capee's first time there in 5 years. So I'm sure that is going to be, that's a really cool little place. We've been there. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. That's going to be a really cool environment. They'll be excited about their first quarterfinal appearance in a while. Ascension Catholic, they're scoring a lot of points. They did it to St. Mary's kids last week. I think this is a heck of a matchup. I think both of these games probably end up being very high scoring. St. Edmunds has been scoring a ton of points all year. I think they pose a problem with Westminster Christian, who gave up 35 points last week to Opelousas Catholic. So, I think both of these are shootouts.
St. Edmunds and Westminster Christian's a rematch game from a few weeks back. It was a 37-22 win in favor of Westminster Christian, obviously. But, we talk a lot about St. Edmunds and their offense with, Zombrecker and Dubois and Driggs. But, look, man, that Westminster Christian offense has been phenomenal. Stephen George at quarterback has really, again, just watching him operate, he does an exceptional job, as well as the rest of that team. So I would expect maybe a little bit more high scoring than the last time, to be honest with you. And the other side, Ascension Catholic, a team that feels like they're always in the mix in this point in the season, going up against Catholic Point Capee, who is looking to finally break through. I think they need to lean on quarterback Jude Morrison, who's been their guy for quite some time, while Ascension Catholic, Trevin Simon has been unbelievable at running back. He's had 500-yard games this season, has run the ball just over every single defense. I think both games could be pretty offense-heavy.
Yeah, and how about at this top half of the bracket in this Division 4, select 3 teams from District 5 1A. That's Westminster Christian, St. Edmund, and Catholic Point Capee. So
I told you all during the season, man. That's the best 1A district in the state.
says a lot about that district for sure. Down at the bottom of that bracket, 3-seed Hamilton Christian will host the 6-seed Ascension Episcopal Blue Gators. And the 7-seed Ouachita Christian, this game here is going to be a whole lot of fun. Yeah. Ouachita Christian travels down to the 2-seed Riverside Academy. It almost feels like the winner of that game kind of becomes a favorite in this bracket. Just the feeling that I get, but that's going to be a dynamite matchup. And then as well, you got the Blue Gators traveling out to the Lake Charles area to take on Hamilton Christian.
All four of these teams had such impressive wins last week. You think about Ouachita Christian beating Southern Lab 38-0. I definitely would have never seen that one coming. So that is going to be a heck of a matchup. Riverside, I watched them very early in the season, was super impressed. This is a team that even took Terrebonne down to the wire early in the season. So this Riverside Academy team is really good, really tough. And they have a stud receiver who's a third-year starting sophomore. I mean, it's crazy how talented this Riverside team is with the young kids too. But I think this will be a really tough matchup with them for Ouachita Christian. And again, at the top, I mean, Ascension Episcopal, definitely wouldn't have seen them taking down Kentwood, the Kangaroos, And so another team that has really proven to be very good. And then Hamilton Christian, just with all the stuff they've had in the news and all, you would have thought that it had been every excuse for them to not have a great showing last week, but they overcame some adversity. And here they are. It's their first time in this round in 10 years. And so through it all, they're having literally the best season they've had in a decade. So going to be some good matchups.
Blue Gators feel like this is probably their opportunity. They always seem to be so close and always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So I think this. They feel like this is their opportunity, but you're going to have to slow down Javon Vital, who again is a guy who's getting a ton of looks from schools, rightfully so. He's a really dynamic playmaker for the Warriors. So again, I think that's what the game is going to come down to. Can they somehow keep Javon Vital in check and again, allow their offense to do what it needs to do. On the other side, man, Riverside, Ouachita Christian. I said Ouachita Christian reminds me of the Division IV version of Catholic. Like, they can do pretty much anything offensively. They play some physical defense. Of course, they did drop a game to Oak Grove at the tail end of their season, which the score kind of jumped out at you. But Riverside's only lost one game all year too, guys, and that was week 1 to Terrebonne. Exactly. And what's important to note as well, guys, Jaden Obikwe, running back, transferred over from East Jeff, did not play in that football game. So I'm just saying, I think this game has a lot of potential, along with 4-year, like 3. It feels like 5 years almost. But Brock Bourgeois, starting quarterback at Riverside, has some experience. I think that's going to lead itself really well, despite it being a home game. I do feel like Riverside is going to feel that pressure of playing one of those, powerhouse schools that, are in the state of Louisiana, especially in those lower classifications. But Coach Roussel has that team believing in themselves, and they got, again, they pretty much they have just as much talent as nearly 75 to 80% of the teams in the state, despite having less players and despite being a 1A football program. So I think it'll be a fun one.
Yep, no doubt. And this Ouachita Christian team program, it feels like doesn't matter where they play, who they play, they're going to show up and expect to go and win. So this matchup is going to be very fascinating for sure. So that'll do it. But what a show that was. That was a whole lot of fun too. So if you are still watching, listening, following along with us, one, we appreciate it. 2, please go on to our Twitter or X, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Absolutely, the more we get, the more we can get some stuff pushed out. Jason, also, we'd like to tell them to follow us on Facebook. Is that right?
Yes, follow us on our Facebook page. Our group is great. We love it. And we'll tweet out, but again, our Facebook page, because once we get a certain amount, supposedly, once we get to a certain threshold, we will be able to live stream from there as well. So please follow our Facebook page. And shout out to Normal Guy and Cheese again for watching and commenting. We saw you. We just didn't get a chance to get to you.
No, we did. We did see you. We appreciate that, fellas. But look, this is, again, one of the best weeks. I think Coach Schultz said it the best. It's this one, and then it's the second weekend in December. So this week is the week where you see programs and teams that have been there and done that, teams that can handle all that comes with playing on Thanksgiving week, aside from playing a really good opponent on Friday night. But definitely going to be a fun one in the state of Louisiana. We hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy it. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the food. Take some naps. Do whatever it is. Hope you and your family are blessed. Y'all have a good one. And then we will check back in on Friday night to watch some great football around the state. And then you can catch us right back here on Sunday night to recap all the action from week 3 in the quarterfinals of Louisiana high school football. For Lance, Jason, I am Cass. Thank you for watching Talking Ball. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you again.